Welcome back to the Asia Fruit Logistica Media Studio. I'm Mike Knowles, and I'm with a foremost blueberry expert, Cort Brazelton. Cort, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure,
and
Mike.
Cort, what we want to know is, where is the Asian market for blueberries going?
Well, that's a great question. Asia represents a really tiny portion of global consumption today, less than 8% of consumption by the IBO estimates. Using China as an example of this, I was in inland China last week, and when you put all the numbers together, you combine domestic production plus our best data on imports, it looks like China's consuming about 1/4 of a berry per year per person.
Okay, so that's still fairly small.
There's
then.
arguably some room.
Because
Yeah.
the impression we get is that lots of people around the world supplying blueberries are really taking a great interest in China and Asia as a whole. What are the big import markets for blueberries here in Asia?
Japan's the longest standing market. Japan's been a big net importer, not just of fresh blueberries, but it's actually one of the largest net importers of frozen blueberries in the world. And that's become a lot more stable in recent years. China does see pretty considerable frozen imports from Chile. Moving to the fresh market, it's really driven by China now. There are some interesting things from South America going into some of the Southeast Asian markets, Indonesia and Thailand, particularly the Peruvians are actually doing some neat stuff there. But the great growing beast is the Chinese market, mainland Chinese market.
And in order to capitalize on that growing demand in fresh, what is the blueberry industry at large going to have to do? Is it going to have to invest more in varieties or logistics? What's the answer?
I think the answer to everything is yes.
Okay.
This is a more distinctive market from the North American market, which is a little less discerning in some of the product that it lets in. In some ways it's a little more similar to what you'd see in Europe. The consumers are more selective, also the buyers tend to be pretty focused on meeting those demands of what the consumers want here. There's a lot of focus on size. General feedback is there's a preference for a sweeter berry, lower acid balance, so more sub-acid flavor. And of course everybody loves bloom and everyone wants size and everyone wants crunch. Last time I checked, there's no one looking for soft, leaky berries.
Well, you do surprise me. You do surprise me. What kind of products could we see developed for Asia? Could we see a variety developed for Asia in particular?
I think this is already happening a little bit, particularly in South America, and then it'll be happening more in exporting regions like Southern Africa, and to a lesser degree North America. There's a preference already for certain varieties. There's certainly open and public varieties that are more accepted or preferred over others, but there is a growing wave, and this isn't really an Asia thing, this is a global thing. Like in table grapes, like in stone fruit or tree fruit or apples, there is a greater tendency to move towards proprietary genetics, differentiating genetics. There's a lot of neat things happening in blueberry breeding across the board, and no one company has a monopoly on the opportunity. Okay. And there is a growing awareness of varieties and then a growing preference for varieties.
Okay.
Yes.
And just finally, on a global scale, what do you see as the big trend in blueberries for the coming 2 or 3 years?
There's a couple trends. Parts of the world, so from a supply side perspective, parts of the world are still in an establishment phase. There's a lot of regions that have a potential to meet some of those demands out there in volume and availability, quality, timing, that sort of a thing. There's other more mature growing regions like the United States, Canada, and Chile, and they're in a retooling phase. Not just varieties, but you see a lot of new technology, packing technology, post-harvest, new creative ways of marketing, efforts to actually differentiate a product that's good. And then on the marketing side, the biggest trend globally is likely going to be a move up the value chain. A couple years ago in an IBO meeting, one of the CEOs of one of the leading companies in the berry category reminded us that the first phase in a produce commodity is just supply driven. It's all about having product, followed by having some sort of differentiation. And the last part is value creation. And so I think we should expect over the next 5 to 10 years a move towards differentiation, not just by variety. I think we'll see new types of packaging. I think we might see some new technology arrive in how people eat the product. There's a lot of convenient elements about blueberries, and I think there's underutilized opportunities to actually make it more convenient to access them. So we should see big changes in varieties, increased preference for quality, and I think the other big trend that we need to recognize is there's probably going to be some attrition in the industry as well. There's over 700,000 metric tons of blueberries in the world last year. That's less than 10% of global strawberry volume, but it's still much bigger than it used to be. And a good portion of that production is not meeting the expectations of consumers in the future. So the industry has to work through that. It's not all roses.
I see.
There's going to be a lot of change that the industry will have to work through.
Now, I said that was my last question. I'm going to ask one more anyway. Will we have enough blueberries to satisfy demand around the world?
There already is, and there shall be an abundance of blueberries that don't necessarily meet consumers' expectations today. That exists today. That demand has been exceeded.
Okay.
And then there's an argument, particularly in the more discerning markets, that there's a lot of room to deliver the type of product they want. There's a general undersupply of the quality fruit people want that has the firmness, the consistency, the reliability, the flavor, and also the cleanliness, traceability, all those things that consumers look for and a retailer looks for and a handler looks for. There's a lot of room in that, but it's all about doing it well now. It's not just the art of showing up. The last 20 years in blueberries in many regards has just been showing up.
I see, so time to knuckle down. We'll leave it on that intriguing note. Cort, thank you so much for joining us and explaining a bit about the market.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Join us again later. Tune in for more interviews at the media studio here in Hong Kong at Asia Fruit Logistica.